Hi, I'm Emily from British Girl Bakes, and I'm going to show you 6 ways to use cookie cutters to decorate cakes. To start with, you can use cookie cutters to cut shapes out of cakes. To make shaped cakes, take your cake layers and press your cookie cutter into them, trying to get as many shapes out of each layer as possible. The layers should be thinner than the height of your cookie cutter for the neatest shapes. You can spread or pipe filling onto each layer. Here I'm using a 4B tip to pipe little open stars of frosting on as a filling, and then arranging the next layer of cake on top. You can leave these cakes naked, or you can frost them. Smooth frosting is tricky on shaped cakes, especially when they're this small. So it's easier to pipe the frosting on, and if you're looking for ideas, I have a tutorial on 8 ways to use a 1M tip, and you can watch that by clicking the link in the top of the screen, or in the description below this video. I'm adding some sprinkles on top of this cake, and I'm going to leave it naked. So to prevent it from drying out, I'm putting it in the freezer for about 30 minutes, just until the frosting has set and will hold its shape. And then I'm wrapping the whole cake in cling film and putting it in the fridge until I'm ready to serve it. I'll take it out about 1 hour before serving it, and take the cling film off straight away so that when the frosting softens, the cling film won't damage it. It's best to keep it in something airtight until serving it, like a Tupperware. Another way to cut cakes with cookie cutters is to create a piñata-style cake, also called a sprinkle explosion cake. Cut a shape out of the middle of all of the cake layers except the top one, and after assembling your cake as normal, you'll have a chamber in the middle, which you can fill with sprinkles or candy, and then place the final layer of cake on top to seal the chamber, and to provide a flat surface to frost over. Frost the cake as normal, and decorate it however you like. This would be a fun design for a gender reveal. And then when you cut into the cake, the sprinkles will explode out of the cake. You can also use cookie cutters to shape chocolate, candy melts, or cookies, and you can use these as cake toppers or to decorate the sides of cakes. To use chocolate or candy melts to make shapes, there are a few techniques. Melt the chocolate, and if you want to colour it, you can use gel colours for a strong colour without making the chocolate seize. The first technique is to arrange your cookie cutters on a silicone mat or parchment paper and spoon the chocolate into the cutters, pushing the chocolate right up to the edges and sprinkling them with sprinkles or edible glitter or any other decorations you like, and leaving them to set for a few hours or putting them in the fridge to set more quickly. Then you can just push the shapes out of the cutters. If you're enjoying this tutorial, please click the thumbs up button. Alternatively, you can spread the melted chocolate or candy melts onto parchment paper or a silicone mat using an offset spatula, and then dip your cookie cutters into hot water, and when you press them into the melted chocolate, you'll cut out a neat shape which you can then lift up out of the rest of the chocolate. Attach the shapes to your cake by pressing them into piped rosettes of buttercream, either on the top or on the sides. You could also use melted chocolate to attach them to the sides if you prefer, and once the buttercream or melted chocolate sets, the shapes will be secure on the cake while it's chilled and for a few hours after coming out of the fridge. To add some height to your cake, you can make cookie toppers on sticks. I'm using sugar cookie dough for these, but you can use whatever recipe you like, as long as it will hold its shape. I leave the baking powder out of my recipe so that the cookies don't spread out while they're baking. After rolling out the dough and cutting out the shapes, I push a paper lollipop stick into each one, just going in about 1 centimetre or ½ inch. I freeze the cookies before baking them, and this also prevents them from spreading out as they bake. Once the cookies are cool, you can decorate them with royal icing, or just make a glaze with powdered sugar and a few drops of milk. And I'm dipping this one in some edible glitter to make it sparkly. You can also use your cookie cutters to cut out thinly rolled fondant and stick that to the cookie by brushing the back of the fondant with a paintbrush dipped in water. To decorate a cake with these, you can place them straight onto the cake, or you can pipe some swirls of buttercream and push the sticks gently into them, varying the height of the cookie toppers so they're all visible. Finally, you can use cookie cutters to guide you as you pipe or spread frosting or attach sprinkles to a cake. After frosting your cake, you can press your cookie cutter into the frosting to leave an imprint, and you can do this on the sides and the top of the cake. I like to do it after chilling the cake, so the frosting has set, and you won't accidentally damage it by smudging it with your finger. Also, the imprint you leave when you pull a cookie cutter off will be neater when the frosting has set. Then you can pipe over the imprint, using it as a guide to trace over. This is buttercream thinned out with a bit more milk than normal, and I'm wiggling the piping bag slightly as I pipe to give the impression of lace. After piping the outline, you can leave the decoration like that, or you can fill it in with free-handed patterns. For this cake, I'm piping over the outline of the cookie cutters, and then I'm using an offset spatula to smudge the frosting inwards, creating more of a crochet effect. If the decoration is smaller, you can smudge the frosting with something smaller, like a ball tool or a paintbrush. To get coloured shapes or sprinkled shapes on cakes, you can trace your cookie cutters onto parchment paper and cut the shape out, leaving the outline which you can use as a stencil. Chill your cake for at least an hour in the fridge so the frosting sets and holds its shape, and then when you take it out of the fridge, if the room you're decorating in is warmer than the fridge, you'll get a tiny bit of condensation on the frosting, which will allow the parchment stencils to stick to the sides of the cake. Use an offset spatula to spread frosting over the stencil shapes, spreading inwards so you don't get any frosting underneath the parchment. Then when you peel the parchment off, you'll leave behind perfect coloured shapes. You can make these even more fun by spreading frosting, and then pressing sprinkles onto the frosting so that they stick. As the sprinkles fall off, they won't stick to the rest of the cake because that frosting has set. If there are any parts of the shape that aren't covered in sprinkles, you can just pinch a few sprinkles and press them into the sticky frosting you've just spread to fill in the remainder of the shape. To get sprinkled shapes onto the top of the cake, you don't need to use parchment paper. You can just place the cookie cutter on top of the cake, pour some sprinkles into it, press the sprinkles down onto the frosting all the way up to the edges of the cookie cutter, and then lift the cookie cutter up to leave the sprinkled shape behind. I hope this tutorial has been helpful. For more ways to decorate cakes, check out my online course on 10 cake decorating techniques, and I've put the link in the top of the screen and in the description below the video. Thanks for watching! Subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell to see a new cake decorating tutorial every week.